They walk away. They attack, hurt, they kill, maim, rape, strangle, anything they want.
My guest is Klaas Prinsloo. He's South African, Afrikaner, and a dedicated social media activist who has committed himself to raising awareness about farm murders, a tragic and often underreported crisis in South Africa. Klaas, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks a lot for the opportunity, Johan. I really appreciate it, and I think South Africa appreciates it as well.
Thank you. Well, you've recently helped to facilitate an interview with the daughters of Dan and Briggy Brandt and their sister, Elsabie, that were killed in this gruesome farm murder in Hartswater. So I want to thank you for that. And that's also, I think, the reason why I invited you, because since then you and I had contact a few times now on WhatsApp. We got to know each other a little bit. You told me more about your involvement with farm murder. So let's start that. Where and how did you get involved with farm murders in South Africa?
I started in 2023, but before that I got very involved in research in survival in the South African context. And at some point, I wanted to know more about farm murders because it suddenly came up. And I could not find anything about farm murders on YouTube. And I decided there, I said to my wife, this is going to be what I'm going to be doing. And I started off in June 2023. And for that month, there were 12 attacks and 10 people that was murdered in South Africa. And from there on, it was history. With my videos on the farm attacks and farm murders, I also got involved with Klaas Monument. I'll speak about that in a bit. And then the rest is history.
Why did you decide to invest your time and energy in putting the focus on farm murders? That's one part of the question. And then I think important is, how do you actually do that? What is your modus operandi? How do you operate?
Yeah, no, I sensed there was a void because nobody was getting the message out. But I decided, you know what, this must get out, because a farmer gets murdered, and the moment the ashes or the soil sets on that grave, everybody walks away. For some people, there's a process of healing, which sometimes never come. There's people that walk away and say, you know what, this is such a sorry thing that happened to this family. But in the end, a lot of people that is sort of connected at different distances to the murdered person. I'm not talking about the inner circle. The people that's friends, family, a neighbor. They soon forget about it and they say, yeah, this guy was actually murdered 10 years ago. But the family still feels that.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to make people aware. This is what happened this month, so that people don't forget. You become so close to these families, and you start feeling the pain. You start feeling, if you work and you gather the information and you see the material that comes with the information, you start feeling the pain. You start feeling that gash in the shoulder by a machete or a panga. You feel that crowbar on somebody's back. You feel that desolate emptiness, that desperation after the attack, and somebody has been taken out by the paramedics, and he's not going to come back to that farm.
Yeah.
Somebody stays behind, and feels that emptiness.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that I didn't budget for.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Help me to understand how you operate, Klaas, because I'm trying to get a clear picture out in my own mind about how you operate. How do you get your material together to do what you do?
Johan, we're sitting on several, or quite a few. I think something like 5 or 6 different WhatsApp groups, and the information gets disseminated on that.
Okay.
Sometimes you get the information via media, and then I listed in my book first to give you an idea. This is what my register looks like, manual register,
Yeah.
so that if I get to that point that at the end of the month, then I know my register, yeah, is corresponding to the electronic register on my computer. And then between the two, the lot of us, we check each and every case. My notes are much more elaborate. I write about the whole attack, where other people are just putting a line and says, this person, that's his age, and this is the area, and he was shot, and that's the loot log. And that was taken, well, the dogs were hit with a bunker or something like that.
Yeah.
And then from there on, I also start building my presentation, which I put forward and then shoot the videos.
Is it functioning like citizen journalism? You're a group of people, you all meet on and communicate via WhatsApp or whatever other platforms you might be using, and you are all together collating information. Because why I'm asking that is because you've shared some materials with me, and it, you have access to, and you have in your possession and on your computer, obviously, photographs, visual material of some excruciating, painful material to look at. Horrible images of some of these farm murders. So my question is, how do you get hold of that material? Do you work with the police as well? How do you collate that material?
The physical descriptions and the reporting of the farm attacks works through agencies like AfriForum, Transvaal Agricultural Union, people on the ground that gives us information, safety groups, and then when it comes to the visual, the media, then it's stuff that gets sent to me. Says, listen, this is what it looks like. This is, and sometimes even these things, because not everybody has got access to, let's say, for instance, the Laarvelder, the newspaper from Nelspruit. So, and there's a lot of these things that floats around on social media. The truth, sometimes it's difficult to get this material. Some of the material that I sent you is old material, but it's also, pardon, it's also to give people out there an idea of what transpires on a farm attack.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you obviously get personally very involved as well, and that it cuts very deep into your heart, into your soul as well, that this really affects you on a personal and an emotional level as well.
Yes.
Are you also in contact then with the victims themselves as well? So do you have the opportunity, for example, you referred me to the two daughters of the Hartswater murder as an example. Are you also personally then engaged with them and develop relationships with them, and in which builds this profile that you then have at the end of the day that you're dealing with?
Not necessarily. Basically, the only way that I actually deal with the families, because I try to avoid dealing with the families directly after the attack, because of the rawness and heartache that the people are sitting with. But sometimes, especially when it's a murder, somewhere down the line, we need to engage with those families, because that is where the Bidkruis Monument comes in, and we start collecting stuff like a photograph. If we don't have a photograph, we invited people to the Bidkruis Monument. And out of a personal experience last year at the Bidkruis Monument, I actually met some of the families there, and it's It's very, very, very touching. It rises to the deepest of your core, that rawness, the people that they feel that moment that it's been taken away on a Friday afternoon. And that's one of the things that it touches you, but it's also something that you take with you for a long time.
Let's just pause it here for a moment and step back a little bit in time. I want to talk about you. I'd like to find out who you are and how you grew up, how you became eventually this activist for what you're doing. So give me just a bit of a sketch about where did you grow up in South Africa? What was growing up like for you? Give me a bit of a background sketch of yourself.
I spent a lot of years in the town of Brits.
Mm-hmm.
My mom worked at the high school, Brits School hostel. She was a single parent, and yeah, I think those were the best days of my life because uh, when I was a kid, I had the roam of that whole of that Hoërskool Brits grounds. I uh, I was in the copies. I was on the rugby field. And like I mentioned, I was when the British Lions toured South Africa. I was in standard 2, and I had just gotten a new rugby ball. I tell you, I was playing each and every test that they were playing. So I was in a very happy space. I had a
Yeah.
lot of good friends, and I did well in school, especially history and geography.
You were obviously a young child post the democracy in South Africa, or a young person in the new South Africa. How old were you when South Africa became a democracy?
30.
Yeah, it gives me a fair idea more or less of how you grew up and
Yeah,
how you found your place in, I would imagine, then the new South Africa as well. Um,
yeah,
what I'm trying to get to is, I would imagine, a fairly carefree childhood like most of us had.
yes.
I guess the question would be, did you ever imagine, as you were growing up and became a young man, did you ever imagine that there would be a time in your life that would come that you would be confronted with the horrors that you've been confronted with as an adult now doing what you're doing?
No, no. The only horror that I was confronted with while growing up is that we were not allowed to buy ice cream from the shop down the street in
Yeah,
Brits. Was the ice cream was said to be laced with drugs and all sorts of funny things.
yeah.
So I had a wonderful life as a young adult as well.
Now let me ask you this question. Government has resisted for a long time in South Africa. We've seen some recent changes now, but they have resisted for a long time to call farm murders a priority crime.
Yeah, and it's still not been called it.
Yeah,
There was a motion by the DA last Friday that it be recognized as a priority crime.
yeah, yeah. Now I run the risk of making a lot of people angry again because I want to dissect this. The question about
Yes,
the priority crime. I really fully understand the emotions involved. I also fully understand the pain involved, and I do not in any way want to diminish that or make that less. But I'd like to just share with you some of the information, the statistics that I got from reasonable sources, solid sources. The following information, and
yes,
I want to discuss it with you. The first point I want to make is that the annual murder rate in South Africa under the apartheid system was about 7,000 people were being killed in our country under the apartheid system.
yeah,
That is about 500 plus people being murdered in South Africa. That was when we were an apartheid country, the old South Africa. At least
yes,
500 plus people murdered every month. It shot up from that 7,000 murders per year that I just mentioned now. Post democracy, it shot up to 27,000 murders every year. That's something to keep in mind.
yes.
Under the apartheid regime, we
Uh,
had, please comment.
can I echo that, Jan?
Yeah,
Okay. Between 1970 and 1994, 230 people were killed on farms in South Africa. In 1991, let me get to the real statistics here. 10 years, in the first 10 years after 1994, there were 1,000 murders in South Africa. That's the first 10 years after democracy. 1,000 murders from more than 5,700 farm attacks. So that exactly echoes the general or the overhead statistics that you've mentioned now with regards to murders.
Total estimated murders in South Africa from 2004. So we talk about all the murders in South Africa from 2004 to 2024 is approximately, and I must say that I'm quite shocked by these figures as well, 450,700. That means
yes,
from the dawn of democracy to where we are roughly today, about 500,000 people in South Africa had been murdered.
yes.
That is 787 murders per month.
Yes.
A shocking number. Why must government, and it's a cynical question, why must government pay more attention to what seems to be, in terms of pure statistics, a smaller number than the general picture in South Africa?
Government, or the police itself, still sees a murder on a farm just as a murder.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes the difference is that in the city, you've got a cop shop, let's say, for argument's sake, you've got a police station about 5 kilometers down the road.
Yeah.
The reach of the police in terms of where the police station is and where the farm is, that is why I started to make a distance because or a difference, because the distance out to the farm murder is 8, 9, 10, 15 kilometers.
Yeah.
And there is not enough being done with regards to prosecuting these murders, doing proper investigations with these murders. I mean, there was one farmer that was murdered in the Northern Cape province last year. The prosecution said that they could not place the suspects on the farm at that point. And then just last week, they said, but there's no evidence that is linking these people to the farm. Of course, the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, said they weren't in the area.
Yeah.
So, and between the perpetrators saying they were not in the area and the actual eventual act, there's a whole lot of investigation that wasn't done properly.
Yeah.
The figures for 2023 by AfriForum was that there's a less than 10% sentencing rate for farm murders in South Africa.
Which is probably also one of the reasons why it is particularly sad that the commando system had been destroyed by the Mbeki government. It's I think part of the equation that you're making now. Let's talk about the nature of these murders, the torture and the humiliation that seems to be part of the character of these murders. Let me start there. I want you to tell me what it is that you see in terms of the character of these murders.
To give you an idea, when I started doing the research and to see what numbers there are, and I came across this website. Well, I did not come across it. I use it quite often just to check these things, and you get lines that says raped, then brutally murdered, 66-year-old. Throat slit and brutal wounds to the abdomen, 40 years old. Shot and torched to death, 33, and husband, 40. Yeah. Tortured, brutally assaulted, and then shot execution style, 57 years old. Stabbed with a garden fork, 55-year-old. One of the cases that's very close to my heart is the murder on the Potgieter family in Lindley. And if I lose it, apologies. Atti Potgieter was stabbed 151 times, more than that actually, but they could count 151 stab marks with a garden fork. The mother was she was brutally killed in the bedroom, and the little girl at that stage, she was just short of 3 years old. She was witness to all this.
Yeah.
And eventually she was taken up or held up by a ponytail, and she was shot in the back of the head.
Is this little Wilhelmine Potgieter that I think you're talking about?
That's Wilhelmine
Yeah.
Potgieter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then another one that it's I often come across this one, stabbed to death together with an unborn child. She was 31 years old. Tortured with a blowtorch, knives, and a plastic bag shoved down her throat. 64 years old. Now, I'm asking anybody out there, answer me the question: how do we justify the rape of an 80-year-old? That's the questions that we sit with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we could possibly ever possibly justify that, Klaas. I want to just on the same line, some of these actions are so depraved, so obscene, so perverse that I myself question that, is it humanly possible that human beings can actually commit such actions? And I did a little bit of research, and just one or two things. Guardian in 2003 wrote, in one well-documented case, Lita Fourie, her elderly parents were tortured. Her mother was doused with boiling kettle water, and her father had boiling water poured down his throat over several hours. Let that sink in for a moment. This is confirmed by the post-mortem findings. If you'd permit me, it's written specifically, they poured boiling water down their throats, writes The Guardian, quite a respectable, trustworthy news source. News 24, 2022, I noted here. I'll give you the floor now, Klaas. I want to really make listeners and viewers understand the depravity of what we're talking about, the evilness of all of these actions. Writes 2022, writes News 24, a teenager was stabbed. Listen to this, I'm going to say that again. A teenager was stabbed and then placed in a bathtub filled with hot water during a farm attack. It is so gruesome that you cannot in any way imagine that human beings can do this to other human beings. South Africa Today reported, a report in 2019, a molten water torture incident. Mr. Tool Wessels was burnt with boiling water before being murdered. Now, you asked the question, as you explained to me, as you say, explain that to me. My job as a journalist is to ask you, as an activist, as somebody who's deeply involved with this, help me understand this.
Johan, let me add with regards to Uncle John's murder. There's also one report that says his insides were actually cooked.
It's disgusting.
I've sent you media, and I wish we could use that media. And you've mentioned these cases, but I've not mentioned the rape of a woman with a broken bottle, to the extent that they could not find the uterus in the postmortem. Now you're asking me, what type of person is this humanly possible to do these, to execute these depraved acts? There's one farm attacker that they caught. They said the first time was difficult, but the second time or the third time wasn't that difficult because they were like sort of getting into the motion. There's a supernatural aspect to farm murders. These guys, they know that the people that they are going to attack and potentially murder on that farm are Christians. So they fear the presence of God as that we as Christians pray to. So what they do is they go to the Sangoma or the witch doctor, and the witch doctor supplies them with certain, let's call it muti in the real word, so that their senses are sort of blanketed.
Old, yeah.
But then there's also, there's also what Lufuna Gogoro said, that there's, he said there's no moral compass for these attackers. They can walk in and they can do just about anything that they want because, like I said, there's no moral compass. They don't have that responsibility, but I murdered somebody, I'm going to be accountable for that when I get to heaven. Something like that. Because they just weren't brought up like that. In terms of what is socially acceptable, what is the moral, or what's the value of a life? I've seen a video the other day that was taken in the Johannesburg city centre when they necklaced a couple of guys. It was foreign, South African guys, and they were necklaced by foreigners. And the one guy actually tried to get up while he was still burning, and they took a pipe and they bludgeoned him until he was lying still. Now, I don't let myself believe that that guy in that street was actually under the influence of some psychedelic drug that is making him act differently. If you look at what Lufuna Gogoro said in his script, is that the war that the blacks wage versus the war that us as whites wage. I mean, we've been through national service, we've been through training, we've been through commandos, we've been through camps, and we expect a conventional warfare. These guys are not interested in conventional warfare. They're not interested in conventional weapons. Yes, if I can get weapons, if that's part of the loot after a farm attack, then they take it. But there's a different story to that again. But these guys, it's in their, I can almost say it's in their DNA to kill. And the stuff that the more blood they can draw, the better. And they hunt like a pack of wolves. If you go and have a look for the community out there that's watching this video, go and see the African wild dog, how that animal is hunting. They surround their prey, and they start taking bites out of it. And that's the same way that attackers do a farm attack. There was a lady year before last at a roadside shop. She was selling vegetables and a bit of a cold drink here, and they pinned her down, and one guy went and he boiled the kettle, and they started torturing her with hot water. So there's 2 points to the story, is that the supernatural, the muti that is like a psychedelic influence on the attacker is there. But it's also, like I said, it's in the DNA. And they just have absolutely no respect for life. And most of the cases, I would say, I would take it a ballpark figure and say only 30% of farm murders, and I can include farm attacks in that as well, only 30% is where they attack people below the age of 60. Just about every attack, the people that has been attacked is people that's over the age of 60. And they walk away. They attack, hurt, they kill, maim, rape, strangle, anything they want. Sometimes there's the attackers with their bare hands. Sometimes they walk in with a panga or a machete. Sometimes they walk in with a knopkiri. Sometimes they, on the way in, they grab a piece of metal pipe and they walk into the house and they start killing. They start hitting. They start assaulting the people. And yeah, sorry, I'm out of breath now because I get worked up about these things because I work with these things every day.
Yeah, yeah. I really respect that, Klaas. I really do. It's one is at a loss for words when you hear about these things, and I've read about them and I've seen images that you've sent me, and it is impossible to try to explain to somebody how depraved all of this is, how evil all of this is, how perverse all of this is. And I cannot imagine how people live within that reality. How do you deal with this? How do you cope with this? Well, the question in my mind is, what do you think is the prime driving force here? Is it hate? Is the idea behind this to drive terror in the hearts of white farmers? I imagine and I assume that black farmers also probably suffer the same ordeal. I would imagine, but
Yes.
what is the driving force behind this?
Johan, to get to the black farmers, since I started in 2023, I think we've lost black farmers around about 10, black workers included in that. The and let me get back to the case of Brashi and family. The interview you had with Heidi and
The Brandt
Trudy.
family, yeah.
Yeah, the Brandt family. And I don't know if it came out in your conversation with them, but the daughter was bludgeoned with rocks in a sock. That's how she was beaten. They take just about anything they can use. To come back to the other question, yes, it's about getting the farmers out of the farms. I spoke to somebody this morning because there was an incident on his farm out in the Limpopo province, and he said to me that just about all the white farmers around him have already sold their properties. That's the one thing. It's the instigation of fear. It's the instigation of I'm not safe here. Since I think it's 1988 or 82. I'm not sure. I think it was 1988. There were 128 commercial farmers in South Africa. You know how many commercial farmers there are now in 2025? About 20,000. And the places around the table is exactly the same. In fact, you have to move in another table to feed everybody. But there's only so many people that's feeding. That's the one aspect. Then there's an aspect that is around time. And it's a war between light and darkness. And that is where I can almost say, where the center of this all is. And farm attacks, food security, I don't even want to say it because I don't want to upset somebody out there. All that is part of the plan. It's an attack against humanity, and they go off the assumption that just because you're white, you're a Protestant. Our ancestors fled out of the northwestern parts of Europe because they were Protestants. The French Huguenots, they fled to South Africa because they were Protestants. The core of religion or core of Christianity in South Africa is Protestant. And it's a war that is being waged against God's people.
Let me ask you this question, and I think I have asked you the question, but let me repeat it again. We have a pretty dark history in South Africa. Hundreds of years of distrust between the different tribes of South Africa, and include then the whites as one of those many tribes as well. My question is do you think that this is still the part of that clash? Or I know we've gone through a post-apartheid, a reconciliation commission under Desmond Tutu and what it all intended and not intended to do. But do you think that this is still the result of that? In fact, the result of a hate that's been built up between the different peoples of South Africa throughout our 400, 500-year history.
You know, Johan, you're quite close to the point. Now you've got a president that's standing on a podium that says, we need to take back the land of our ancestors. And people on the ground, let me give you a good example. Julius Malema says we don't need the farmers. You can go everything in this, go buy everything in the shop. If you need chicken, you go to the shop. You don't need a farmer to give you a chicken. Sorry. Now you've got a president that says there's no such thing as farmerism, farmer tax. And that same president has said we must take back the land of our ancestors.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Since there's been a lot of talk about him, Julius Malema, do you think that kill the boer, kill the farmer plays a role here in any of this?
Definitely. I've got a document in front of me. It's circular number 213-6. That's dated June 1993. That is when all the talks were about who's going to do what, what's going to do what. And it was directed to the senior staff and marshals. Right at the bottom of this document, we find the words, Viva, kill a boer, kill a farmer. So that is part of the plan. The song just came out of somewhere.
That's on an ANC document.
It was part of the original. That's from that's dated by June 1993.
Okay.
And now you have the Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen, 2 weeks ago, was also dancing in the streets singing "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer." And somebody said to me, you need to really look critically at kill a boer, kill a farmer. A boer is not necessarily a farmer. So the Boer is, let's say, for instance, who I am. I'm a Boer. But now it says kill me, but also kill the farmer. So it's directed at the white population, which is like we concurred that we will use the term Afrikaner, but it's also directed at the guy that runs his farm. And there were instances when during an attack, the attackers chanted "kill a boer, kill a farmer."
Yeah.
And then they still say that this is not having any effect. It's a struggle song. It's not a struggle song. The struggle was before 1993.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you take before 1990, yes.
I think we're out of time. Let me ask you this. I have not been able to do too much research about you yourself, but I got the impression from the stuff that you are broadcasting, that you are putting out there, that you are also something of what I would call, for the sake of this discussion, a prepper. I don't know if that's the right word to use.
Yes, that's the term we use.
Which prompted me to come up with this question. Do you believe that there might come a point at which all of this simply implodes, or explode for that matter? That
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yes, we are expecting a black on black war. And I think, and it's becoming clear that the South African blacks are very upset about all these foreigners. Now, there was talk about Malema bringing about 600,000 soldiers from the northern central parts of Africa to wage this war against the whites. But now the local blacks are becoming increasingly irritable with these guys that's coming in, that's been taking their jobs for the last 20 years. So the presumption is that the black on black war might start between our local factions and the foreigners. And the foreigners are already in our midst. And like I said to you, the incident that was happening in Johannesburg City Centre, where these guys were necklaced. It was foreign guys that was necklaced by local guys.
Yeah.
Even though the concept of necklacing is being used widely, it was still local guys against foreigner guys.
Yeah. It's incredible to think that necklacing itself is an act that überhaupt can happen in a country like South Africa with our vicious parts as it is. It really is. I'm quite shocked to hear that I've not heard about this incident till now. Is there still a chance for us to puzzle this out and to find some way forward? And I think I'm obliged to ask you this as well. You've expressed some pretty strong and dark feelings that I detect in terms of the future of South Africa. To what extent do you think that which you tell me is representative of the voice of white people in South Africa, at the very least? So that's a very polite way, Klaas. It's a very polite way of asking you whether your viewpoint is that of an extreme group in South Africa, or do you think this is something that lurks in the hearts, questions in the hearts of the majority of white folks in South Africa?
Look, there's always hope, Johan. We should never lose hope. And for us as a white minority to defend ourselves against the masses is a war that's already, and I don't want to say it, but it's a war that's already very imbalanced. The warning that came out is that if the black on black starts, the whites should stay out of it. They should stay totally out of it. And my recommendation is for the whites to defend themselves at least, but not being dragged into a fight that is not ours. Like I say, there's always hope. There's hope for the white people in South Africa, but it's also one thing that we must remember as a white nation, as a Boer nation, or Afrikaner, as we can put it as well, is that it is required of us to make a swing back to the well that was done before Blood River. If we can do that, if we can start standing together, if we can start sifting out the liberal influences that is dividing a lot of our people, if we can sift that out, there's always hope for being a white person in South Africa. Look, it's going to get rough. We are in a little season, and it's definitely going to get rough, not just in South Africa, all over the world. And it's a matter of being ready. It's a matter of being prepared. It's a matter of having an ability to escape at very, very short notice. And that is what prepping, the prepping concept is all about. You have a grab bag that gives you the basics, gives you some essentials that you can grab at short notice and get out of the door and get to safety.
Okay. Well, I'm really obliged to ask this question then as well, just try to bring it all together at the end, is there are some people in South Africa that are agitating for new forms of government, new systems in South Africa. There are those that are saying this whole multicultural rainbow nation thing has not worked out. Let me ask, and I'll make that the final question to you. In your view, in the view of the people around you and the people you associate with, and to what extent is that representative of the white view in South Africa? Do you believe at all in the future of the multicultural rainbow nation democracy of South Africa?
No, it's been proven in the last 30 years that the rainbow nation doesn't work. What will work and what has worked in South Africa is the Swiss cantonment system, where each and every group is on its own. And yes, there's going to be a black group and a white group and a pink group and a yellow group, but all of them can function on their own, but not on the same territory. So there's got to be separation between your groups. If there's no separation, we're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. That's a discussion for another day. I want to thank you for this. And
yes.
I will just in closing, I will say that really I'm not going to apologize because I'm being provocative with you, but I want to thank you for the way you answered the questions. And I hope that we'll have an opportunity to talk to one another again on this forum. Thank you very much indeed, Klaas.
You're more than welcome, Johan, and thanks for accommodating us.